Okay, now we're finally moving on to number 3, having a redundant calorie surplus. What I mean by this is when you're in a calorie surplus, so we have the amount of calories you need to stay alive, you eventually have your maintenance, then any calories eaten beyond that maintenance point would be considered a calorie surplus. What happens is, as you bulk up more and you bulk up for longer, that calorie surplus is going to increase over time. You're not just going to eat in this slight surplus and stay there forever. You're going to slowly ramp up the food. You're going to reach a point where eventually the amount of food you're eating is no longer convenient to your life. You notice that you're not building as much muscle and you're actually starting to get fatter quicker. This point is going to be different for everybody. An easy way to tell how far this point is away from your maintenance, essentially, how long will it take before I get to a point where I'm getting too fat? It depends on a few things, but the easiest point to judge is your starting body fat levels. If you're starting at a higher body fat, like I mentioned, you are going to reach this point much faster. If you're starting at a lower body fat percentage, you're starting leaner, it is going to take you slower and slower and slower, a longer time to reach that point. And so we want to make sure that we can stay in this calorie surplus for as long as humanly possible, because we're going to be building the most amount of muscle when we're eating in this slight calorie surplus. It's only when we get to a point where we're eating too many calories than what's needed and we start to gain more fat faster than we're gaining muscle. Now, an easy way to look at it would be, well, that's simple. Just don't eat a ton of calories. And that's true, but you're also going to not be able to maximize the amount of muscle you can build if you're constantly staying in a small surplus. Sometimes you have to push it hard. The answer we're looking for is not a yes or no question. It is not a binary problem to be solved. It is a constant continuum to be managed, which means we have to constantly be aware of how hard we're pushing this calorie surplus so that we know when to back off and when to come back down if we're getting too fat. If you're constantly staying in this calorie surplus, you're going to be pushing more and more and more into that fat territory. When I started at 122 pounds and shredded, no muscle whatsoever, it took me a really long time to get to a point where I got too fat, but eventually I got too fat and I had to back down.